Okay, we're on. I don't know if this is going to work today. What's going on here is there's a forest fire burning about 20 kilometers south of here, right in the line of sight of my satellite connection. And for the last few days, the internet's been on and off, on and off. So I don't know if it'll stay on today. We'll give it a go. But if I disappear suddenly, don't take it personally. That's just the inevitable dukkha of being in a remote location. We've got a few people checking in. We've got El Salvador, Portugal, Naples. It's great. Yeah, somebody's asking if I could record my talk offline while you do the live stream. No, that's too much fussing around. It'll most of the time it works. Occasional time like today, maybe it won't, but we'll see. If it doesn't work, I'll just next week I'll do it again. We got Iran, we got Poland, Wales, Canmore. We got all over the place. Okay, more people checking in. Okay, less than a minute to go now.
It's 6 o'clock.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Okay, just a preliminary remark for benefit of those of you who may have joined in the last couple of minutes, because I've already explained this. My internet is very dodgy this last few days because there's a forest fire burning about 20 kilometers south in the direct line of sight of my satellite beam. So this is occasionally causing the internet to drop out. So if that happens, if I lose this connection before I finish the talk, I'll do it again next week. But we'll plow ahead and we'll see if we luck out. Today is the last talk in the series on the paramis. We're doing Upekkha, equanimity, and that takes a place of honor right at the end of the list. Is the crowning virtue, one might say. Upekkha has a very important place in the Buddhist teaching. It comes up again and again in all kinds of different contexts. And it has different shades of meaning and different connotations, depending on how it's used and what the associated states are. So it's a bit difficult to talk about in a broad brush way. Upekkha is, in some aspects, it's classified as a Vedana, one of the feeling tones, and in others as a sankhara, as a mental formation. So it has already this kind of dual aspect. The simplest form of upekkha is just neutral feeling. It's a word that's sometimes used for the more precise term that's used in the Abhidhamma, adukkam asukham, not happy, not sad, or not pleasant, not painful. It's neutral feeling. So that's not a particularly advanced. It's not a spiritual virtue. It's just a simple feeling tone, and probably the most common feeling tone. So that's not very elevated, but that's the simplest use of the word. As a mental formation, as a sankhara, it has the sense of being in balance and equipoise, not becoming upset, not succumbing to emotional reactions, but staying on an even keel, being balanced. And obviously that's a huge benefit in any situation, if one can keep one's cool and be centered in any kind of difficulty, any kind of challenge or crisis, then it's a real benefit, a real gift to be able to do that. For example, it is equanimity that allows us to stay centered or balanced in the face of the 8 worldly dhammas, sometimes called the 8 worldly winds. That's praise and blame, loss and gain, pain and pleasure, fame and dishonor. These are things that the ordinary unskillful person is thrown around by. It's like a roller coaster ride. You get praised for something, and you feel all elated and happy, and walking on clouds, and then the next day somebody criticizes you, calls you down, blames you, and you feel miserable, sad, depressed. It's up and down. So those are praise and blame, loss and gain, pain and pleasure, fame and dishonor. And the equanimous person remains unmoved by any of that. But just takes every situation in stride and deals with circumstances as they arise appropriately, without being either overexcited or depressed, or losing one's cool in any way. Upekkha comes up as an advanced factor in both the jhana path and the vipassana path. In the jhana path, we have the definition of the 4 jhanas. The the fourth and highest jhana is based on equanimity, upekkha. Second jhana has piti, rapture. Third jhana has sukha, bliss, and these are surpassed by equanimity. So upekkha is better than bliss, than sukha. It's considered a more elevated state. And this type of upekkha is not the simple neutral feeling. This is a profound peacefulness. So it's been called poetically sukham param sukham, the happiness that's better than bliss. So it has this elevated state of being completely at peace. And this is associated in jhana with the other jhana factor present in fourth jhana is ekaggata, the unity of mind. So the samadhi is perfect, the mind is completely stabilized and at peace. It's completely still. In the vipassana path, upekkha is a necessary virtue all the way along, and it takes a special form in the noticing of objects, the form called tatra majjhatata, which has been translated as specific neutrality. A very literal translation based on a breakdown of that compound would be tatra majjhatata, meaning the state of being in the middle about that. Tatra is like a very emphatic pointing word, like that one, not this one, that one. Majja is middle, as in Majjhima Nikaya, and atta is a suffix that makes a noun out of other words. So you could say the state of being in the middle about that. And it's very important. That tatra part is very important because developing insight, developing that sharp clarity requires a specificity of noticing, that one notices discrete objects. It's not a fuzzy general awareness. You're clearly present here right now. What's the object of consciousness? That's the perfection of vipassana. Here's the object of consciousness. I'm fully aware of it, but I'm not moved by it. That's the equanimity part. So one does not succumb to extremes of reaction, either fear or desire, agitation. What one is completely still, clear, wide awake, and very specific and precise about noticing objects. This is something that's very important to a skill that's very important to master, is that specificity. And I think a lot of meditators overlook that, and they develop a kind of general fuzzy awareness that doesn't really cut it. It doesn't really penetrate into the nature of reality. So another application of upekkha in terms of the vipassana path is the state of equanimity about formations, which is an advanced stage in the progress of insight. When the meditator has gotten to this point, he or she has overcome a lot of difficulties and is quite clear about the process. and it's kind of like a landing place. The mind is extremely peaceful, wide awake and clear. It's a very pleasant abiding, but it's equanimous. There's no associated bliss or excitement. It's just a clear, steady, bright, wide awake mind. And there's no sense at that point of making an effort. Although the meditation is flawless, there's no sense of trying or pushing or having difficulty. It's just happening, and you're just sitting there. And this equanimity about formations, we could say it's the furthest point one can reach by striving. When you've got there, you've arrived. It's not yet enlightenment, but it's the place from which enlightenment can occur. And there's nothing particular you can do at that point to further the process. You just have to let it happen. You know? And that's called equanimity about formations. It's a very deep and profound kind of equanimity. Then there's equanimity as a Brahmavihara. Now there are 4 Brahmaviharas: metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, or loving kindness, which we spoke about metta last week. Metta, karuna, compassion; mudita, sympathetic joy; and upekkha. And the first 3 are all kind of variations on a theme. There's a great similarity between them. And as meditations, they're developed in pretty much the same way. But upekkha is separate and different and transcends the other 3. It's considered at a higher plane than the other 3, because metta, karuna, mudita, they have still, they are associated with an aspiration. May beings be well and happy. May they be free of suffering. May they continue to enjoy good fortune. So there's a kind of a subtle aspiration in the mind. So the mind's not completely at ease with the present situation. It's an elevated aspiration. It's a noble aspiration, but it's still a movement of the mind. Whereas in upekkha, there's just a recognition, no, this is the way beings are, and just an acceptance of beings in their own nature, their own state, without any wish for things to be different. The traditional contemplation for upekkha is based on karma. You recognize beings are just the results of their own karma. So whether they're happy or sad, or whether they're noble or base, whether they're high or low, no, they're still just beings in the grip of their own karma. And that's kind of an abstract contemplation. I have heard of a more perhaps accessible contemplation, a way of arousing this sense of upekkha, which is really recognizing that quality of beings that is universal. Beings are different in many ways. That no 2 beings are exactly the same, and we can classify beings in all kinds of ways, in different realms of being, different types of humans, 2 genders, different ages, all these kind of classifications. But there's some aspect of beings that is absolutely common, universal, and that's what we're focusing on: beings just as beings. And the contemplation is to take it one being at a time and recognize this being just wants to be happy, doesn't want suffering. And that's one aspect of beings that we could say is universal, and it ties in somewhat with the other Brahmaviharas. So there we go. This being just wants to be happy, doesn't want suffering. I've used this, for example, if I'm riding in a car on a highway, I'll glance at the faces of the oncoming drivers and raise that thought. This being just wants happiness, doesn't want suffering. And that cuts through any kind of discriminative thought one might have about different types of beings. They're all just the same in that way. And that applies to non-human beings as well. Animals, for example, just want to be happy, don't want to suffer. So that's equanimity as a Brahmavihara, which is equanimity directed towards persons. So it's not as enlightened or as advanced as equanimity directed towards dhammas, which is what we talked about with vipassana. We're not regarding persons, which is, after all, is a mental construct, where dhammas are classed as ultimate reals. So with it's cutting deeper to have an equanimity about dhammas. Now, there are all these different ways of putting equanimity into practice, and we come to this particular topic, equanimity as a parami. The paramis are, as we've been saying throughout this series, they're mental virtues that are developed and are carried forward, that we can take forward even into future lifetimes. And the more we develop our 10 paramis, the stronger spiritually we will be. And we can lose our paramis if we neglect them, or if we go the opposite way. So strengthening the parami of equanimity means maintaining an even balance in all situations, not allowing oneself to be overcome by passionate emotions, either positive ones of desire or negative ones of fear or anger, but maintaining a center, a clear, calm center. And the challenge, and when we strengthen the parami, is when the external situation is difficult in some way, when we're facing some serious challenges in life, and we don't let ourselves be overcome by fear or despair, hopelessness. If we are able to maintain our center and our balance and just deal with things as they come up, then we're strengthening the equanimity parami. If we succumb to these emotional storms, then we're weakening the parami. And the Jataka stories, the Jatakas where the Bodhisattva develops the Upekkha parami, is always, and these Jatakas, you have to recall, are the previous births of the Buddha, and they can tend to be extreme when they're talking about the paramis, because the Buddha didn't just take them to a high level. To become a Buddha, he had to take them to the level of perfection. So the Jatakas where he develops parami, he's being in some very terrible situation. Like there's one where he's being tortured by an evil-minded king, and he's having his limbs cut off one by one, but he doesn't lose his inner calm and peace. He just endures it. So this is tied in also, and all these paramis support and strengthen one another. So this is also tied in with the Kanti parami, which is patient endurance. But Upekkha has this other quality of being not overthrown mentally, even by wonderful good fortune. One just takes the situation in stride. There's a Taoist story that I think it's from the Tao Te Ching. I can't recall exactly, but it's a Taoist story about a farmer whose horse runs away, and his neighbors are all expressing their sympathy. Oh, what are you going to do? How are you going to get the crops in? You lost your horse. All this is a disaster. And he's just calm and says, oh, well, could be good, could be bad. Who knows? Then a few days later, his horse comes back, bringing another horse with it. So now he's got two horses, and the neighbors are all jumping with joy for him and clapping him on the back. And, oh, what a lucky man. And he says, oh, who knows? Could be good, could be bad. And then his teenage son is trying to train the new horse, and he gets thrown and he falls down and breaks his leg. And the neighbors are all upset again, and he's still calm. He says, oh, who knows? Could be good, could be bad. And then the final episode in the story, the king's men show up in the village to round up all the young men to put them in the army. The farmer's son by because he has a broken leg. Another Taoist teaching around these ideas is the strength of the willow tree compared to the mighty oak. When the oak is big and tough and strong limbs, but when a storm comes, the branches of the oak crack and break, but the willow just bends with the storm, and the storm passes and it returns to its natural state. So this is a deeply important metaphor. Equanimity doesn't mean being cold-hearted, being stiff, rigid. It's having that fluidity of mind, that inner peace, that the storm comes, but we deal with it. We don't just ignore it. There is a kind of corruption of equanimity that could be called indifference. In Thai tradition, they call it the water buffalo equanimity. I've also heard it called tree stump equanimity, which is just the equanimity of dullness, which is not spiritually uplifting. If you're just too dull to care, then that's not equanimity. That's just a dark indifference. The elevated kind of equanimity, the Upekkha as a parami, is associated with a bright, clear, wide-awake, open mind. It doesn't ignore anything. It doesn't suppress or repress anything. It's fully aware of all the circumstances, but it's not overthrown by them. It retains its calm and clarity in all situations. And like all these spiritual virtues, this one maybe particularly, we strengthen it in small situations, and then we have the resources and the inner strength to deal with life's heavier challenges. If you let yourself get upset by every little setback, like if you drop your cup on the floor and it breaks and you get all upset about that, then when something serious happens in your life, how are you going to handle it? So I think that's all I'm going to say about at this moment for equanimity, and that concludes this section on paramis. And the internet is still up, so we'll deal with questions until either the questions run out or the internet connection drops out. let's see. First thing here. Tree stump equanimity seems a bit like stoicism, turning your heart to stone, turning yourself into a walking, unfeeling statue in order to deal with ups and downs of life, a kind of cop-out. Yeah, but I think that's mostly true, but it's also associated with just dullness. Like the water buffalo is a very stolid animal. You might say stoic, but it's not stoic out of philosophy or out of kind of any elevated sense. It's just too dull to notice anything. So in terms of the parami, should upekkha be seen as a quality attendant to or suffusing all other paramis, or is it a separate culmination? Yeah, that's an interesting dichotomy. I think in a way it's both. It's definitely an independently defined quality, but it does have an underlying. All the other paramis could said to have an underlying basis in equanimity. Is it true that witnessing unpleasant feelings open the door to developing equanimity, as one needs to watch those feels also with balance, knowing they are impermanent? Yes, this is the practice of vedanusati, awareness of the feelings. And an important thing to know about feelings is that they are classed in Abhidhamma, they're classed as a resultant, meaning they're not really under our control. If so, there's nothing wrong with having an unpleasant feeling or a pleasant feeling. That's just a reaction, and automatic reaction based on previous karma. The upekkha comes in with the attitude towards the feeling. You don't let yourself get carried away by them. Is equanimity preceded by renunciation, or they are not related? Well, all the paramis are related in some way, and renunciation would certainly be a benefit or an aid to equanimity, because you can get away from that grasping mind, which one of the sources of throwing us off the center is the grasping mind. Now, there's the push and pull. There's either desire and longing, or there's fear and loathing, the two sort of sides of it. And equanimity doesn't succumb to that. And if one is as practicing renunciation, vikama parami, then you're cutting off avenues, you're renouncing avenues of falling into those traps. Should one intentionally plunge oneself into challenging situations to build one's equanimity? I don't think so. I don't think it's really as a general thing. I wouldn't want to be, I wouldn't want to be too strong on that, because I think I would maybe make it a bit more nuanced and say that one should be willing to take on challenging situations if there's some higher benefit. One shouldn't be afraid, and one should be able to challenge oneself, but just to take a challenge for no reason, just a blind, walking into danger is not. I don't think that's necessarily wise. But if there's some difficult situation that needs to be faced to gain a higher benefit, one shouldn't, develop equanimity. You wouldn't back away from it. You would just go through with it. In day-to-day life outside meditation, can you be happy and unlifted and equanimous at the same time, just allowing happiness to be unfold without being sad when it goes away? Would that be upekkha? Yeah, I think that's well said. That happiness, is a resultant. It's an experience that we have, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually uplifting to the mind. Becomes problematic if we grasp after it and try to hold on to it. when the equanimity remains as a mental formation, even in the state of happiness, when one is not unbalanced by it. You allow yourself to enjoy that happiness without being consumed by it. Is there a difference between equanimity in the paramis and equanimity in the Brahma Viharas and equanimities during meditation? Yes, they're all subtly different. They're all variations. Equanimity in the paramis, if I had to put a short definition on it, I would say it's like a life attitude. It's a way of holding the mind as one goes about one's life. And equanimity in the Brahma Viharas is equanimity directed towards persons. It's being able to see those aspects of beings that are universal, rather than discriminating on individual types and levels of being. And equanimity in meditation is that particular specific noticing. If during meditation the attention stabilizes after some rigorous effort and small glimpses of pleasant calm arise, is that in the direction of equanimity? Short answer, yes, definitely. Yeah. How to practice equanimity when one is being bullied, as in that moment become tormenting to keep calm and take all the nastiness thrown on us? Yes, exactly. That's exactly the type of situation when equanimity comes in as a real benefit to the mind. As I told you in the Jatakas, the Buddha was tortured to death and remained equanimous. You have to develop, you can't at that moment, if you haven't developed equanimity previously, and then you face a challenge like that, like being bullied, then you're not going to find it. You have to develop equanimity as a virtue prior to that situation happening. Then you can rely on it, and you can maintain your center and your calm, and you won't internalize that abuse. Should one use Upekkha as a meditation object or apply it only as different feelings arise? It's a meditation in the Brahma Viharas. I think it's a bit to take it as a meditation object, I think is maybe a bit too elusive or abstract. It's a virtue that's adjunct to meditation, that helps in meditation and in any kind of meditation. But I would think it's a bit too elusive and abstract to take it as an object in and of itself. For a layperson, is it recommended to cultivate the 4 Brahma Viharas level, or is it better to cultivate in deep only one? No, I think all 4. You can use them at different times, and it's actually good to explore all 4 because they have slightly different feels to them, and it could be very illuminating to get that sense of the difference. Is equanimity the antithesis of passion? Pretty much so, if you define passion very broadly to include negative emotions as well. Can one practice equanimity towards neutral sensations, or being aware as much you can do about them? Well, if you have neutral sensations, there's no problem in being equanimous in that sense. The challenge with neutral feelings is being aware of them, because they're so subtle, they don't move the mind strongly. So just to be aware of that neutrality is more difficult. Is it true monks in forest tradition meditate near bodies at cemetery grounds to build equanimity and also to decrease fear? Yes, that is done. It's not so common today because it's kind of harder to find dead bodies, but it's still done in some monasteries. There's still corpse meditation happens. If you develop meditation through Upekkha and get into jhana, would you go directly into fourth? Yeah, I would think that's probably correct. I know in Visuddhimagga, they talk about the first three Brahma Viharas as you're not able to go beyond first jhana because there's still too much mental activity involved. But if the Upekkha was deep enough, you could take it to fourth. It's also in the Visuddhimagga stated that you can't really develop equanimity, Brahma Vihara, until you've mastered one of the other three, which means taking them to jhana. So, but I would also caution you have to be a bit, you can't be too rigorous in these definitions. The Visuddhimagga tends to be very, what's the word, like systematic. And I think that the reality of people's own experience can differ. It's not so rigidly defined as in the Visuddhimagga. Are neutral feelings dangerous in the sense that one can attach to the comfort of such feelings and become lazy in practice? Not if they're associated with bright, clear mind mindfulness, like in equanimity about formations. They would be a danger if they're associated with dullness. That this is the state of mind that in the Thai tradition they call it bhavanga mind, which is a word taken from Abhidhamma, but it's not used in the same way. In the Thai meditation tradition, they talk about bhavanga as being the state that sometimes you can fall into when you're meditating. That's also called they also call it miccha samadhi or false samadhi, where the mind is very dull and it's sort of pleasant because it's peaceful, but there's no clarity. It's almost like a hypnotic state, and it's something to be avoided. And that's a kind of a type of very deep tree stump equanimity. That's not to be sought after. But if there's bright clarity in the mind, then there's no danger. Namaste. Is it possible to study Abhidhamma on my own? Yes, sure. Just get some good books. There's Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation of the Abhidhamma Sangaha, which in English is called Manual of Abhidhamma. That's a great place to start. And there's a really excellent book came out not too long ago. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. Theravada Abhidhamma by Karuna Dhamma. That's maybe I would recommend that as a second book to read. Bhavanga as in Bhavanga Chitta. No, it's not exactly the same. It's in Bhavanga Chitta is a Abhidhamma classification, but Bhavanga is used in Thai meditation tradition is a little different. It's not so precise. It's referring to a kind of state of mind. It is very difficult to practice meditation in time of good. It is very difficult at times to practice equanimity in time of good fortune. It is easy to get carried away despite knowing at the intellectual level it is impermanent. Yeah, that's something that one needs to work on. And one of the kind of paradoxes is that you'll actually enjoy the good fortune more if you give up attachment to it, because you're going to lose it eventually, sooner or later, usually sooner. So if you just enjoy the moment without succumbing to clinging or fear of loss, but just be completely present with the sensation at the moment, then the enjoyment is more pure. Equanimity seems to protect you from becoming purely reactive. Succumbing to passion of any kind seems to dilate consciousness. Awareness is myopic. Equanimity seems to be a key for progress. Yeah, exactly. That's well said. That it is a great protection. If you have the strength of equanimity, then any situation that arises, you're able to deal with it. You're not, as you say, you're not reactive. There's some advice on places to look for Abhidhamma teachings online. Yes, there's a lot. Bhikkhu Bodhi is excellent. There's a lot of resources online as well. Can certain techniques like intensifying attention to visual empty space or hearing the pauses between sounds be helpful and part of a comprehensive practice? Yeah, that actually is. It's actually something that you can do with paying attention to space. It's just something you can do on a kind of a casual level, momentary level. Like you're in a room, we tend to focus on the solid objects, the walls and the furniture. But just try shifting your attention to the space defined by the room, and see that's actually more peaceful. And you can just do that casually, for a few moments here and there. Can you give future talks on Abhidhamma? I've already did a series on Abhidhamma. I may do it again sometime, some more talks on Abhidhamma. I'm not planning to pick it up again soon. You can find them. They're still on my channel. You can find my talks on Abhidhamma. Last question. We should remain equanimous toward neutral feelings too. Correct? I heard the neutral feelings are linked to avijja, which is linked to rebirth in the animal realm. I don't know if true. Yes, neutral feelings, if one is not mindful of them, that if you fall into this water buffalo equanimity, dull equanimity, then leads to avijja, ignorance. Just as pleasant feelings lead to desire and unpleasant feelings lead to hatred. But this only applies if you're unskillful with them, if you're unmindful. If you're mindful of them, then there's no harm to any feeling. It's just a feeling. Does an arahant need to practice equanimity like a bodhisattva, such as getting tortured without losing balance? Well, it's not something that an arahant needs to practice. An arahant is beyond needing to practice anything, but they would have a very high level of equanimity just naturally. Equanimity can be tough in relationships. Yeah, sure. Yeah. In meditation, there's a point when things become boundless and profound and strange. I always get way scared and cannot remain equanimous even though it's not painful. Yeah, this is the fear of the void or the fear of the abyss that is one of the challenges that one has to find the courage to just go through. If you keep backing up from that, you won't make the progress needed. There's a an image of that I kind of fond of is the fool in tarot. The tarot cards, and the fool is the 0 card, which is significant. And in one popular version of the fool, the image is a man dressed in kind of like what do they call it, like harlequin, sort of clownish attire, vagabondish, and he's carrying his belongings and a stick over his shoulder, and with a cheerful smile on his face, he's following a butterfly as he walks off the edge of a cliff. That's a perfect image of equanimity, and that and profound teaching and wrapped up in that image. How will be the sleeping pattern of an arhat? Very little sleep. It's said that the Buddha only slept really for 2 hours a night. He lay down for 6 and slept for 2. He spent the other hours in meditation and wandering the realms. It seems to be impossible to go through that fear of this utterly profoundly. Should we try again and again, or maybe there's a need for a completely different approach? One has to just surrender to it. Just abandon any thought of self. If one practiced dhamma with equanimity, is a different kind of merit. Actually, that's an interesting point about karma. That in terms of making karma, making the mind with equanimity is actually doesn't generate the most merit. It's the mind with joy. Joy works as an intensifier to karma. So when you do something either for good or evil, if it's done joyously, then the karma is stronger. If it's done with a neutral mind, it's still good karma, but it's not as intense as if it's done with joy. Does reflecting on this idea, everything is pleasing to me, will become otherwise, help in building equanimity? Yes, yeah, it does. Like if you reflect on that, everything that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. Then that builds equanimity, and undercuts that attachment that makes equanimity impossible. Or could there be even more harder challenges after you get there? I think that's referring back to the previous question about facing the fear of the void. Well, there's always, until the final liberation, there's always more challenges. But you don't progress through them by backing away. Is becoming joyous at the time of performing merit opposite of equanimity? It's not really the opposite. It's equanimity is considered in general, it's the higher state because it leads to enlightenment and leads out of samsara. If you're making merit, you're not immediately or directly leading out of samsara. You're improving your condition in samsara. And joy is a intensifier of that. Okay, I think we'll maybe getting close to an hour. I think we'll wind it down now, and we'll take up something different next week. I haven't decided for sure what I want to do. I've got a couple of ideas in mind, but we'll see how the spirit moves me, and hopefully by next week the internet will be solid. And we lucked out today. It stayed up for this whole session. I was a bit nervous about it because as I was getting ready for this session, the internet dropped out twice in a half an hour prior to this session. I had to reconnect, but now it's stayed up. Okay, thank you all, and we'll see you again with something different next week. Okay.